God damn it. Well, what are you waiting for? Kick the hell out of me and get your standing ovation. Come on!
No, not this time. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want either of us to end up killing the other. But we're running out of alternatives. Perhaps it all hinges on tonight. I don't know what it was that bent your life out of shape, but maybe I've been there too. Maybe we could work together. I could rehabilitate you. You don't need to be alone. We don't have to kill each other. Let me help you.
I'm sorry, but no. No. It's far too late for that. You know, it's funny. This reminds me of a joke. See, there were two guys locked in a lunatic asylum. And one night they decided they didn't like that anymore. They decided to escape. So they made it up to the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see rooftops stretching across town, stretching to freedom. Now, the first guy, he jumps right across, no problem. But his friend, oh, no way. He's afraid of falling. So the first guy, he has an idea. He says, hey, I got this flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings, and you can walk across the beam and join me. But the second guy said, what do you think I am, crazy? You just turn it off when I'm halfway across. Oh, excuse me.
You must have seen flurries of videos being created by theorists online right now about the mass sighting of clowns appearing, luring children into the woods with money, candy, to do God knows what with them. And these sightings have been growing in number and spreading across, well, America, the UK, and possibly the globe. Why are these clowns appearing? And that has been the question for many people. I think I may have an answer, and the answer lies in the giants of the past, and perhaps this is symbolic of them returning.
Floating, like someone's pulled the stopper on my reality, and I'm sucked down the drain to something new.
It's all very exciting. It's like meeting someone I can actually relate to, which, believe me, I've never felt before. You understand? You're someone who's not afraid to let go and fall.
You left me in black hole of rage and confusion. plan. You know, it was consciously aware that I could see it too. And I know what the underground psychedelic subculture likes to believe about these jesters. They believe these elf machine jesters are good, and you know, they will say things to you that are offensive, but they've been told by humans who want to enjoy the psychedelic experience that these things are offending you because they're trying to shatter your ego. You know, they're actually trying to show you not to take things so seriously, because everything's going to be okay when you die. You know, sin isn't real. Look at you taking life seriously. Ha ha ha, what fools humans are. And you look at these things just laughing at you, dancing around you. And you've been convinced from the words of man that these things are good and they're just trying to teach you something. But these things attack people.
Oh my gosh!
Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Come on in, sit on down. It's time for another episode of the Truther Therapy Sessions. Episode 120. What a lovely round number that is. It sounds good to say, doesn't it? 120. It should be a good show for you guys today. For those listening live, I apologise for being late. As I was explaining to my guest offer then, I don't have a legitimate excuse. I just fell asleep. That's all that happened. I will quickly just ask that my guest turns off the live stream in the background on his tab, because I think that's also my problem as well. There we go. So my home theme music just blasted in my ears then. That was my fault, not my guest's fault, actually. I have the tab open on the other side. The irony is I just gave him the same advice to turn it off, and I didn't listen to my own advice. I'm a hypocrite already before the show even begins. But yeah, the truth is I actually fell asleep. I put the kids to sleep. Me and my wife were on the sofa. I just finished making the thumbnail. I laid down for a second, and then I was out like a light and waking up at 9:10, running around like a madman trying to get this stream set up. So sorry for the people listening live that I am late, but I'm here. Better late than never. We're good to go. I've had a bit of a power nap, I suppose, so I'm reinvigorated, and we should be able to have a good night. But today's guest is somebody who actually reached out to me a long time ago, maybe 2, maybe 3 years ago. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. We actually arranged to have a talk then, but it just never came to fruition. One thing after another, time difference problems, couldn't make the call in, and time goes on, and we just kind of forget. And then randomly, I got a message from our very own Vicky Joy Anderson, who's a regular guest on the show. She's an author, a bit of a spiritual, a warfare expert to some extent, and she's been on the channel a few times to talk about dreams and things like this. And she sends me a message on Instagram, and she says, "Oh, Paul, I talked to this lad the other day. His name's Tyler, and he's talking about how he came out of Antifa, and he's kind of on his spiritual journey to finding Christ. And I think maybe you could have a good conversation. I think this could be a really good talk between you two." And as soon as she said it, I was like, "Wait a minute! I know that name. I recognize that name." So I quickly had a search to my emails, searching the name Tyler, and there it was. I found it. I found the email from years ago, and yes, it just didn't happen. So I sent him a message. I re-invited him, and he said he'd be happy to come on and do the talk. And since then, he's been very busy from what I've seen. He's got like 350 videos on his channel. He's got about 8,500 subscribers. I think he had nothing when I first talked to him. And he's been busy kind of having hard conversations with people who are coming out of Antifa, the so-called anti-fascist protest group, but also having conversations with like hard right commentators as well, to try and have that conversation that bridges that gap between the right and the left. A noble goal, of course, to bridge gaps and try to find common ground and find ways of having unity rather than division. But he also has his own little talks in between where he's clearly having a bit of a therapy session, which I like to do, which is just trying to figure it all out and get it all off his chest as well, while going through the motions and obviously trying to get to grips with a newfound spirituality in Christianity and in Christ. And I thought, yes, we definitely can have a great conversation. So without further ado, Tyler, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. For those in the chat listening live, please do me one huge favor and let me know the levels, whether I'm too loud or Tyler's too loud, and I can correct them in due course, because obviously this is just live. We have technical issues, and I don't want there to be too much of a major issue one way or the other. But Tyler, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you actually taking the time to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of grateful we didn't talk to begin with, because I was going through a little bit of a crisis, which at the time I hoped that you could give me answers to. But given some months and a lot of tragedy that had happened, it turned out I needed God for that. I wasn't even claiming to be a Christian at the time. I claimed myself to be an omniist. And the reason I reached out to you originally is because basically dealing with a series of problems revolving a UAP whistleblower, former Freemason / old father figure, mentor / neighbor of mine named Larry. And he came out wanting to talk about things such as human trafficking, his UFO experiences, contact with the demonic, different jester entities, claimed to have channeled Zozo, the Ouija board demon. About the time I was messaging you, I think it might have happened afterwards, he began declaring himself to be Legion, carving pieces off his body, casting hexes, started going into really, really dark magic, which wasn't really what he was doing literally 4 episodes prior. It was about a 7-episode series. But the more he began to speak about the demonic and the spiritual influences in his life, things began to happen in the real world. Simultaneously, the UAP invasion was going on. People were seeing shadow entities everywhere. I was having my own experiences, and it just felt very, very apocalyptic, and still does, but it's eased thanks to Vicky Joy Anderson, like you mentioned. I reached out to her after the same friend became essentially possessed and was threatening to do very terrible things. I had to cut contact with him. Still speak to him through the channel and others like him should they be in a similar dark place, but there was just too much interconnected friction when it came to our own demons, which we both believe to be very, very real, not just metaphorical. But a lot of our journeys throughout the years mirrored each other's, to where it was almost like we were split souls. But one thing I pursued whenever I was speaking out about Antifa, and sorry if I go a little all over the place with this, there's so much crazy to this, but
no. Well, maybe we'll just stop. We'll stop there for a second.
Yeah, let's just, because it's just jumping on.
It's a lot said there already. And I think when you said no, it's probably a good thing you didn't talk to me originally, and you kind of need to have that time with God to get to grips with what it is you're learning. I kind of agree that that's probably the right thing, to be honest. I mean, when I first woke up to Christ in 2014, I had a 4-year isolation period, I was on my channel doing my thing, but in my life, I was very much just trying to figure it out, get to grips with this newfound understanding of what it means, and going through the whole spiritual warfare thing, like you said, battling these demons, your own personal demons, as well as in those around you, kind of detaching yourself from the world bit by bit and going through a horrible, painful process. And it sounds like you just need to do that first anyway. I think most people can relate to that story. So I think it sounds like you've been doing the right thing. I'm sorry that happened to your friend. And I'm kind of sorry for all of it, really. But in the long run, I think it probably is for the best, would you say?
Yeah, because I think, thankfully, a lot of the tragedies he was threatening didn't happen. I think his story exposed a lot of flaws in the system. And there's a lot of things he was saying in the beginning that, I've always believed in the reptilian shadow people. I was his next door neighbor, and I would do all these different psychedelic sessions, but I'd also be reading these different occult books. In essence, I worshipped both. I worshipped the idea of manipulating time and space. And in the same way, he was very much the same, claimed to have stories about having stopped time in different states and reality and all this. But so he guided me through a lot of these psychedelic experiences where, for example, the one time I've ever taken DMT, I saw a being that, if you wanted to know what it looked like, all you have to look at is Tyler Robinson's Notebook, the trans shooter who shot the Minnesota church. He's sitting there standing in the mirror, this gas mask-like being with the teeth and the horns. That's what I saw on DMT. When I left Antifa and did mushrooms, the night that I decided this is it, there was so much compounding, but I was just like, I need to move on, start a new chapter. I summoned the gray reptilian clown entity that I sent you images of. But
yes, let me quickly get that up so people can see what we're looking at here. I'm just going to switch to my webcam while I go rooting through the emails to get the picture up. But you, like I said, you have had psychedelic experiences, and you were, I think when you first reached out to me, you actually sent me this image. I think I remember, and it's very telling of my own work in a way of what I've been talking about. And to be honest, you're one of like hundreds of people who have sent me a lot of images like this of visions they've had on psychedelics, or even just after the fact as well, where they seem to, it's like a repeated universal law of psychedelics, you know, like if you do it long enough and hard enough, eventually you get this, you kind of get these entities coming towards you. And I've just downloaded it, so I'll quickly flip the image so we can see it on the screen, because I think the one you sent me is in portrait mode. Flip, there we go, and I'll just share it now. Nope, that's not right. So screen, and this is the image, which I think they'll be able to see. Yeah, so on the left, you've got this white-faced, triangular-faced, single horn jester cap looking entity with like patterns all over it. And then on the right, you've got what looks something like a pale-skinned, large blue-eyed, red-lipped reptilian-type monster. Maybe you want to explain this a little bit more, what it is we're actually looking at here on the screen, and kind of how you had this experience, and what did you think at the time, or what was going on here?
Well, at the time, I was experiencing gratitude. I had seen riots and protests. I'd seen a lot of violence on the streets. I was at a complete breaking point. You know, I was still doing drugs and drinking all the time, but I felt gratitude. I had my friend over at the time, and my husband and him were in the other room watching TV. We had our animals, and I felt safe, which was a rarity at that time. I just remember feeling I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. And I had a bunch of artwork. I was trying to like do a graphic novel for a long time, but I had art block from hell. So I put it all in a box, decided to tuck it away, had a funeral, cried over it a little bit. And then I had already taken the mushrooms at that point, but I decided to go lock myself in the bathroom for a couple hours and breathe in the steam. And I just remember smoking weed basically and like dancing like a fawn. Like I don't dance. I was listening to music and I was prancing around, probably, you know, taking off my downstairs neighbors. And then eventually I go and lay in the shower and I'm breathing in the steam. So different things start to happen in the steam as this is going on. And at one point, there's like eyes and teeth that start coming out. And they're like gnashing at me and gnawing and getting closer to my face. But I was feeling really confident, right? So I just stuck up my middle finger, kind of like Joe Rogan teaches us to do with the gestures, which I now question all of that. But just kind of like, F you, go away. And they kind of look at each other. They nod, they go into agreement. I project out of my body for a moment. I'm looking down at my body from the top of the shower, and I'm like lifting up my arms, and I'm kind of like, oh, this is wild. Come back to my body. There's the shower curtain right there. My shower curtain doesn't have any kind of reflection, but then all of a sudden it's a giant mirror. And it's like somebody took a bat to that mirror and it just shatters into infinite number of diamonds that are all interconnecting. And I'm staring into these diamonds, and then all of a sudden I'm looking inside jars of preserved frogs. And there's moments where I'm like pieces of flesh that like broken off in these little alcohol mason jar bottles. And I'm like looking through the rib cages and at the frogs. And I'm just going through jar after jar after jar, but I can see men in coats and all that on the outside kind of sifting through it. So a little bit after that's done, I come back, but I notice there's this one diamond in particular next to me, and it's shifting in and out of reality. You know, it's after this bathroom experience, I literally left the bathroom. The first thing I told my husband and my friend was, I just saw God and it's not what we think it is, referring to the time and space manipulation. But within that was the reptilian being with the white hood and the Joker paint. And it was just ever changing, but it was forming out of the mist in this triangle. Now, what I didn't realize until a couple of days later, the image with the gesture drawing, the scribble one with all the symbols and the weird stuff, that wasn't me. My friend had actually gone into my art studio, which was surrounded by like ripped up pieces of the Bible, occult books, crazy different paintings, you know, rage art, like just really crazy morbid stuff. He said that he was possessed by an overwhelming urge to draw. And then he grabbed the paper basically while I was having that trip, and he was like scribbling it out, like auto drawing it. And he said he couldn't stop and he couldn't put down the pencil. And it was like the drugs that he was on was suddenly amplified. Like the art itself became a drug. So I drew that crappy little doodle shortly afterwards because I could barely hold up a pencil after the fry. It was insane. But when I was in contact with it, I noticed that it was kind of matching my head sway. And it's mouthing things to me telepathically. And I can't really remember what it is so much. I think the one message that stuck was, you know, affirming my belief in a higher power, being like, God is real, but you're the middleman. So if something terrible happens to you, then you're going to kill God. And in turn, you're going to kill me. So I have to protect you so that we can protect God. And basically, you know, at
sounds
one
convoluted.
Yeah, but it made sense in my head. I'm just like, yeah, that makes sense. As above, so below. This is just the yin yang of the situation. You're just my darker element. But at one point, it had like a little baton in it. I don't even want to say its hand, its tail, but it just kind of like waves in front of me. And then I just start like, I said something and it just started mouthing me, and it just kind of goes like, nods its head, and I just kind of feel like this, I have you now, and it goes back. And there was a couple times where I would like look away for like a couple of seconds or a minute, and then I'd look back to see if it was still there, and it was just like, yeah, still waiting. Further down the line, it happened on, I believe it was a Thursday. Its color association was purple. I ran through all the different things, going through different texts, and basically boiled down to Shamarash, King of the Jinn. And it met all the qualifications for Jinn, on top of all the jester entity stuff that you teach about. And, you know, also coming to realize in turn, this wasn't just one entity that had just popped up out of the blue for me. This thing had been a part of every single psychedelic experience I'd ever had, which is probably well over 100. You know, there's a kind of process I realized over the years of taking these drugs where I would see certain images. And at one point, it even gave me a different name. But in the beginning, I believed I was channeling Thoth and using the occult and chaos magic and different meditative practices. And then I started getting shadow people attacks. And this was years before Antifa. So I thought the shadow people were Thoth, and I had to appease Thoth. And if I wanted the attacks to end, then I would have to do some soul searching, do more psychedelics, understand the literature more. So I just got deeper and deeper and deeper. A couple years later, this manifest after some of the most hellish years of my life, which was my 2 years in Antifa. So it's like you're leaving this hell there,
yeah, you know, it sounds like you were going through it, very much trying to, on your journey of self-discovery, but naturally psychedelics seems to be the route a lot of people our age kind of went through first, because we didn't really know where to go to try and find some kind of spiritual answer to reality. And it seems like psychedelics seems like an easy route to take. It's kind of like quick answers, quick experiences, fast food spirituality, no wasting time, you know, a short attention spans. It's a good way to get there fast. And again, your tale is as old as time itself. What starts talking to you when you start breaking through? You can assume all sorts of things about them. Fundamentally, I think they're just liars. I think they want to lie to you immediately about what they are and who they are. And you might be right. You might have identified that very entity as this king of the jinn in some way. But fundamentally, they're just the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, who did go by many names while on the earth, under many rulership positions and to varying levels, you know. So you may actually have had something high-ranking attached to you from the sounds of it, or something that claims to be high-ranking and haughty anyway, but they don't really have that much authority. But I think it's interesting that they kind of convinced you that, well, if you want to go deeper and keep learning more, you just got to take more. You got to keep going harder into it, you know? And that is just a downward spiral into hell. The reality is like you don't actually get any wiser doing psychedelics, because psychedelics can't offer you wisdom. That's not what they do. All they do is make you see more stuff of what's already there, and then something on the other side tells you what you're seeing and makes you believe all sorts of things as a result. But I think the psychedelic community, primarily is a left-wing community. That's kind of something I kind of discovered when I was in it. And if you want, and I'm not trying to be political when I say that. I'm kind of like spiritually, politically left as well. It's like all of it. It's not just the politically, like more socially artistic, shall we say, left. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
that's
more
what I'm
to
trying
that
to
angle.
teach people with what I do is because
Yeah.
that's most everybody in Antifa, they're having very, very similar experiences. Most of them are pagan or cult practitioners, or at the very least anti-God. Most everybody I knew in that space in the far left, and like you said, they're very much the creative types. We're all channeling this. Different people have different entities with their own names, and it all just, it's like I think it's MK Ultra. There's an attack on this entire subsect of people, and especially the more the Epstein files are coming out, I've been seeing all the same imagery from all of my psychedelic experiences, Nephilim encounters. I'm seeing it on the island, on these paintings and these pictures. And like episode 12 of your the Nephilim Look Like Clown series, there's a guy, he basically drew this same image. This is the sigil of the demon. It's so just, it's copy paste to an extent. It's all unique and it manifests different, but it's hitting a very specific part of the population. That's really what I want to teach people is like, there's a reason that what you're seeing on the streets looks demonic.
I remember that episode. I think he was a guy who called himself a jester. Kind of was heavily like, it's like he had become one with this entity that was like attaching itself to him, and he clearly probably had some kind of Jungian idea about it being a reflection of his own shadow or something like this, so he kind of integrated it, and he basically looked and was acting like a schizophrenic delusional from like a mainstream medical standpoint.
And that's how my friend Larry was getting. That's the thing is when I saw that and what he was saying and I compared it was getting to be very, very similar because he was going in deeper. So those emails, when I heard that, I was like, this is very familiar.
And the funny thing of his artwork style was very much like somebody I knew when I was at university getting my art degree, and surrounded with artists and that type of person, and he was heavily into the occult, huge Aleister Crowley fan. And I had never really, I was kind of new to all that stuff at university, quite young, 22 years old, you know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of, they're like listening to him like, what do you believe? Why do you believe these things? What are you reading exactly? Because his artwork was basically a cult pagan ritual, Aleister Crowley ritual. He was like doing chants to Hecate, you know what I mean, while making himself look as strange and inhuman as possible. And it was just this very odd display all the time. But his artwork was very much the exact same scribble, sigil making style. And he even said, I'm making sigils like that person who talked to me and had his own art style, and like you just showed there that sigil but he was doing stuff like that, but it was almost very automatic when you watched him do it. It didn't look like he was trying to do it necessarily or thinking about the shapes he was making. It was just chaos, but out of the chaos comes these faces, these forms, these what seem like sigils is a good way to describe them. And I'm not gonna lie, this guy at university was not smart. He was very low IQ. Like, I'm not giving him credit because there is no credit. There's nothing due. Like, he really wasn't that intelligent. Like, in fact, he may have been borderline on the other side. You know what I mean? And he was just barely.
It's like it hits everybody at different levels. It's like it doesn't matter where you are in society. It seems like it can get you somehow. Like Heath Ledger. I feel like Heath Ledger and what happened to him is a perfect example of like the same type of phenomenon. And I think how Hollywood probably capitalized on that when they killed him. But it's like
Heath Ledger was drawing stuff. He was drawing things. I don't know if you've seen his journal that came out. His father, I think, released it way after the fact. But while he was trying to get into the role, he was scribbling similar looking things, like very similar looking things in his notebook. So he was channeling something. And this is what happens when you start dressing that way. You're playing with fire, and you just don't know. And I think people who tend to lean more left do tend to colour themselves up a little bit and dye their hair a crazy colour and body modification and piercings and the rest of it, or wearing masks is quite common too, and I think when you start doing these things, if you're ignorant to the connection to the spirit realm, the physical realm, when you do that kind of thing, it has implications in the spirit realm as well as the physical, and you're kind of inviting things in, and they always end up going down like a weird manic clown-like behavior. Like that's always how it ends up manifesting. And I'm not over exaggerating, because I been surrounded with these people. I've met them, you know. I worked with them in university, and I didn't understand them. I tried, you know, and I have this weird. I've always been one that kind of attracts the strange people, and they befriend me, you know. And I'm nice, so I go along with it for a long time, and maybe too long sometimes. But you know what I mean. But I get to know these people, and it's kind of like they really believe it. They really do believe what they're doing is actually good. They have a very antichrist mentality. And they think they're going to get some kind of enlightenment or spiritual power from going through the occult route. And it's kind of and again, they're always very anti-establishment, anti-tradition, left-leaning type people who want to break down all social barriers and norms. So you typically call this left-leaning principles, you know, ideologies. And I guess I'm excited to kind of get into this with you now as somebody who kind of lived the Antifa life for 2 years, because I kind of saw this on the periphery happening, and I kind of, my personal take was kind of these seem like the useful idiots of like a communist regime, and I mean that in a technical sense, not as a derogatory sense. It's actually a descriptor for people who are being used and will be discarded once the regime they're trying to get into power is actually into power. They're kind of just useful foot soldiers for things they're not really thinking about. And it's kind of wasted energy as well, because these are the creatives of our society, and they get channeled into this warlike mentality, which I think if they were utilizing their skills in other ways and perhaps not so ideologically possessed, then maybe they could have actually done something great. But I don't see what Antifa is doing is necessarily great, because they have this label of, we're anti-fascist, so how can we be wrong? And it's kind of like, well, that might be the name, but you know, when the first circus came around, it was called the Royal Circus, but it had nothing to do with the royalty. Like, you can be called one thing, it doesn't mean you're actually the thing or associated with the thing. It's kind of like it's a who can argue with anti-fascists? What are you, some kind of fascist? It's like the perfect name to have that kind of plausible deniability against anyone against him. And I could see it immediately. But tell your story. How did you get involved with these people? What happened exactly? What happened to you? What happened, man? Like, explain yourself and how you got out of it. I'm sure people are eager to hear.
Absolutely. Well, basically, 2018 to 2020. Was never officially like a part of any chapter, cell, or anything like that. The best way I put it is I was a drifter. I wore the black bloc attire, but black bloc was always too paranoid for me. I'd go out with the Antifa flag, all my weapons, machete, brass knuckles, pepper spray, the like. It's a cult, first and foremost. It's definitely a domestic terror organization. And yes, organization for people out there who think it's just an idea. Maybe at one point, not anymore. But I lived in Eugene, Oregon, where there's actually a lot of debate to where that was the first place where the Americanization of Antifa actually happened before they moved to Rose City. Antifa became the first chapter. So the entire town is basically, you know, I tell people it's more than an idea or an organization or anything like that. It's a culture. And in Eugene, it's very much a shared culture within the community. So you've accepted, you know, ever since the weaponization of the flower power era and the hippies and MK Ultra, Charles Manson, all that crap, you know, on the West Coast, you have these hippies had kids and their kids had kids and they had kids and they had kids, right? So by the time I get down there, down the line, there's people that are generations stripped away from religion, are very, very, I don't know, just anti the system, fuck the man type stuff. You know, I was moving from Texas at the time, so it's like it was a very, very different type of culture, and it was very alluring. And I still miss it a lot. There's a lot of really good aspects to it, but you know, by the time 2016 hit, things were getting very, very dark, and this was before my time in Antifa, but this is when I started to see the riots and the anti-Donald Trump stuff and got to see the clown craze for my own eyes, saw a couple of the clowns out there running about. I actually, at the time, had an altar with a Buddha head painted up with the Joker paint, and I had all these different trinkets from like cemeteries and like crystals and whatnot, and I actually had newspaper clippings of the clown craze behind my altar because it just felt that weird. It felt like all of a sudden the world was going into some surreal Daliism type reality. Things were just beginning to not make sense for me, not just from being in a different environment, but the fact the world was completely breaking. So fast forward to Antifa, you got the COVID stuff on top of that. We had permission to go out. How dare the right be out without their mask? We're the good guys. I really kind of saw it for myself when I saw the chaos, because for me and a lot of different people involved, we all agreed there was a spiritual awakening happening of sorts. But groups like Antifa and all these other different organizations, you know, I call them spiritual traps. It's like they capitalized on the fact that people were waking up. And they're like, okay, well, you're one of the enlightened ones. You're coming with us now because the people you hate are going to start a civil war and they're all going to kill you. So when we would see the conservatives go out with their Trump flags and their trucks and all this, it was like we were seeing the enemy. The cult programming was getting in there. Add to the fact, like I tell people, you've never seen a sober Antifa member in your life. There's a reason they won't respond to debates. There's a reason they'll spit in your face, punch you, pull guns, do all the crazy things under the sun. They're high. So you add in drugs, you add in stress, you bring in traumatic backgrounds for a lot of them. You know, not everybody in Antifa comes from a traumatized background. Those who are deeper into it, I would say would. But then there's the fact that, you know, you have these kids on the outside and they're the furries and they're dressed like frogs and they just want to go in and have a party. They were inspired by our trauma and then essentially became trauma seekers while we were all trauma bonding with each other. So people were trying to compete over who had the worst trauma, who had it worse in life. And I just basically watched the group eat itself alive. I watched, you know, black people being called the N-word. I watched things happen to cops that shouldn't have. You know, we were, you know, I had my good days to my bad days. One of my political heroes is Daryl Davis, which is why I like to talk to people on the far right. But there would be times I'd want to talk to people, and then there'd be other times that it's like the demon took over and I would just snap and become a different person. But one of the things that I like to tell people that really got me out, because everyone thinks they can just use a gun to handle the situation, had an invertible jacket, and it was black on the outside, camo on the inside, and everybody's based off symbols. And I have a Punisher tattoo for Marvel. So, you know, Punisher's on the right, camo's on the right. If I wanted to cross over onto the other side without anybody giving me grief, I would just flip the jacket inside out, flash the Punisher, they let me through. And one day I'm just rabid and I'm like, I'm going to find these Nazis. I'm going to figure out where they're meeting. I'm going to sneak in wherever. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I'm tired of dealing with these people. And I just see a prayer circle of conservatives, just men and women holding hands, praying for Antifa. And then all of a sudden I'm getting flashbacks to childhood in the church and my mom and my grandma. And I'm just sitting there looking at myself like, what's going on? Like, it kind of snapped me out of it. And there was still a lot that had to happen after that. But it was one of those things I took with me to where I was just like, I don't think these people are our enemy. And the conservatives, they welcomed me in with open arms while everybody else spat in my face, called me a racist, transphobe, homophobe, Nazi, white supremacist, this, that, or another. So it's the right just really wasn't having it. It's like, they're like, we don't want to hurt you. We don't want to kill you. We just want you to stop. And I feel like once I understood that and could have, you know, healthier conversations with people on the other side, it helped guide me in my journey, because it just, it turned me into a monster. And I have a lot of regret from that era.
Powerful stuff. I mean, I suppose the whole phrase, if you raise a child in the faith, it'll never leave them, is probably true to some extent. It might be a walking example there. And I think that is, I think lack of communication really does appear to the major issue between the right and left divide. Because like you depicted there, it seems the left really do see like dangerous, psychopathic enemies in anyone who doesn't believe what they believe. They see demons around every corner, monsters, Nazis. It doesn't get much worse than a Nazi, right? Like, what do you do from there? The only thing you can do, you kill Nazis, right? You know, there's no humanization there anymore by that point. But again, like I said, the other side does tend to be more, well, no, we don't. We'll pray for you. Like we don't want to kill you. We don't make an enemy out of you. We just think you're deceived. And that's a completely different, like, the worlds apart, and it is hard to get the people. One side does want to talk, the other side doesn't. This seems to be what I always notice as well. One side is always trying to reach out and communicate with the other and offer a debate, while the other side doesn't want to even talk. They just go straight to violence. And that can only happen if you've kind of been brainwashed. That can only happen in like a cult mentality. That can only happen if you've seen the world in black and white and you are good and they are evil. That's the only way that can kind of come about necessarily. And so you think this is due to basically just generations upon generations of Americans completely disconnected from any form of traditionalism or ritual, like religion of Christianity, the tradition of the country, shall we say, kind of isolating themselves into pockets and causing enclaves, and as a result, you just end up with this. Did you notice any maybe agent provocateurs around? Do you think that maybe there's more of an organized, purposeful injection of this ideology into the American culture? Like, what's happening here exactly? Where do you think this comes from?
I mean, a lot of it's coming from the institutions. A lot of it was coming from local politicians that were willing to give us cover. The Democratic Party was in full support of what we were doing. Seattle was inviting people to the Summer of Love, for example. But one thing that really scared me is when I started doing this podcast, I finally found an ex-Antifa member, and I actually found him a job that I was working. And he was angry towards Antifa, very angry. He wanted to start an anti-Antifa coalition with me called the Pride Panthers, which was hilarious because he's straight. But his heart was in the right place. But he was Antifa for a very short period of time, but he was sent into Antifa essentially as a drug mule. So a lot of these gangs, different groups, it's going to depend on where you are, but local underworld organizations, they see these kids as right clientele. So they're sending in people with ketamine, methamphetamine, heroin, acid, any drug you can possibly imagine. They're trying to get it out to people on the streets. So he said that he was into the Antifa mentality at first because he's like, yeah, I have gripes with white supremacy and F Nazis and this, that, or the other. But then he realized how dumb they were, but that they were still good clientele, right? He still had to make the money. So he was telling me stories about different people he knew operating out of Portland, and essentially said that there's various different cartel interests that are involved in Portland and the West Coast, particularly the Chinese. That is about as much details as I have. I don't want to know anymore. Fine with not knowing anymore. But the way he painted it, and I think this has been happening in the UK as well, and this would explain a lot. You have a riot right here, right? Let's say downtown London, or downtown Portland, pick your place. All the protesters are here, all the militias are here, all the journalists are here, all the cops are here, all the fire trucks, ambulances, all your resources right here. Everywhere else is a dead zone. So from my understanding, there's people coming in, mitigating the chaos, have their people inside, have drones, have different people in different areas. What they're doing when these riots break out is they're trafficking drugs, and they're trafficking humans, and they're trafficking weapons, and they're trafficking whatever else. And this is a lot of what would happen in the Middle East too. It's just copy paste. So
they're a convenient cover.
They don't know they're a cover. Antifa they're just pawns. A lot of them will scream at me, no, this is bullshit. Of course you're not going to know about it. You're not questioning where your acid dealer got his stuff from. Mm-hmm. But it's getting bad to where a lot of these different groups seem to be in bed with a lot of different local businesses who are then also invested with the city. And basically the way I put it is we just all live in Gotham City now. It's that level of criminality, and Antifa is just at its best just a distraction and a way to make a quick buck.
Interesting. But most people obviously think they're smashing the fash, going out there, doing what they need to do to fight back against white supremacy and oppression in the highest order. Again, being a useful idiot, while people who are actually opportunists and understand what this can be used for are peddling drugs behind the scenes while resources are being misdirected. I mean, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And it makes sense as to why, and this is something maybe you can help me understand. From what I can tell, Antifa, at least in the past, had full government support and were allowed to turn up and cause anti-fascist demonstrations at peaceful protests from conservatives, let's say, or more right-leaning groups, or whatever it was, or whatever it is they're trying to do. Then obviously Antifa would turn up and get violent, and then it would always be framed through the media as anti-fascists fight back against fascists. The good guys are fighting back against the evil, and it's kind of okay. So if you have that kind of media support, how anti-establishment can you actually be? How do they square that in their own head? Like, what exactly? When did they miss that the Overton window was in their court? Do you know what I mean? What's going on in their heads here? It's delusional. Like, but can you, as somebody who's in it, what did they think? What were they thinking at the time?
I think everybody came up with their own different answers. Everybody played mental gymnastics because, for me, I kind of saw it as like an overall mission. Like, we're all in it together, even though our police department isn't that bad. Other police departments are bad, but completely negating the fact that, you could do all these things under the sun. We were constantly paranoid that people were going to arrest us, right? Kick down our doors, black bag us. It was... that's kind of what they preached is going to happen. But simultaneously, at least in my case, I knew for the most part, anytime I went out there, I wasn't going to get arrested. The first time I moved to Eugene, I wanted to test the weed laws. So I got a big old joint from a dispensary, and there was a car crash next to my house. So I was like, lit up on the front porch, and I just walked over to the officer across the street, and I just tested the waters, and I was like, so what happened here? And he just laughed, and he's like, oh, yeah, this guy did this, that, or the other. He saw the weed. He didn't even, question it once. So it's like, fast forward a couple years. Yeah, how bad could they really have been? I never really seen any acts of police brutality. Now, this is how, because Antifa and BLM are very separate. It started with the BLM protest. You had a lot of people in the African-American community that they were coming out, and different people would be from different areas, but then there'd be some people that were local. They would tell you stories that would break your freaking heart about the way they were treated in jail or prison or all of this. And that's really what the whole thing was supposed to be when Antifa took it over. Now, I'm going to say it plainly. I think that George Floyd was a junkie, and had I seen the video where he swallowed a ball of fentanyl before what happened, I would not have rioted or protested in his name. That is just where I stand currently. But that didn't take the pain that people were feeling, what that was bringing up in people in different communities and cultures. So you go to these protests sometimes, and it brings you to tears. But what Antifa are is they're trauma appropriators. So they would take that on for themselves. It's mostly white, at least in Eugene. So the way I call it is it's a white boy jihad. So they want to go and be the saviors, and they want to go launch this crusade in the name of the people that they saw hurting. And this is how bad the trauma appropriation got and how much they get into your head. I would bring Sharpies, people would bring Sharpies, and we would make the crowd write our phone numbers of our police contacts on our arms to simulate the Holocaust numbers that Jewish people would have in the 40s. Because they wanted that image in your brain at all times. So it's very, very dark place. And it weaponizes empaths and turns them into monsters.
Yeah, because it sounds, like I said, throughout all these descriptions, it sounds like it's empathy gone awry, or empathy to the extremes of delusion, and it's kind of reaction without thought primarily seems to be the driving factor behind this. So you imagine the type of people who are in that state of mind. They can't be sober. First of all, like you explained, you'll never see an Antifa member that isn't under the influence of some kind of drug, and I can see how can they not stop for a second and really just think before they react about what's going on here? And that explanation kind of sums it up quite quickly, I think. And this delusional inability to kind of see, oh, wait a minute, are we the bad guys? Do you think it is just rooted in extreme empathy? It's just a case of they think they're doing the right thing. They actually are genuinely living in fear of monsters out to kill them, and they are saving the oppressed class from a murderous governmental regime that wants to kill them in the streets and beat them to death. I mean, so I'm trying to get to the answer here. Why do they think this so vehemently? It can't be just because someone told them so. Do you think that trauma has something to do with it? Because you keep mentioning trauma bonding and this idea of, is that what this is? Has Antifa basically recruited everybody who has some form of PTSD? And is that what it is? Explain to me. I'm trying to understand here because I'm worlds apart from this. So I'm just trying to get some knowledge. Tell me what you think.
Well, there's a multitude of factors, but trauma, I would say, is the biggest one. This is something Andy No noticed, which I noticed too. Antifa's most dangerous members in the United States, take Oregon for example, weren't the locals. The locals didn't really seem to enjoy what people were doing. People like me, we're coming from the southern states. So I had friends that were coming from like Arizona, Florida, Oklahoma, Texas. So you're leaving this place at a young age. A lot of us were running away from our parents and all these terrible traumatic things that had happened to us. You know, maybe running away from the law in a couple of cases. I mean, in my case, I couldn't even go back home because I had failure to appear in court. So there was a warrant out for my arrest for years in the state of Texas. So, you know, you've got a lot of that going. So this is your new home now. This is your new family. These are your new people. We're not going to worry about them anymore. Maybe some people will go back and visit occasionally. But for the most part, it was our parents are fascist. They're evil. They beat me. They touch me. They did this. They did that. A lot of them have trauma from the church, I noticed. Which I can't really say in my case. I saw questionable things within the church growing up, but a lot of them have gripes with the church from things that had personally happened to them or things that they'd seen. So when you have a lot of these transplants coming from a more dangerous area to places like Portland or Eugene, then things just amplify like crazy. But we're all looking for validation. We were all looking for friends. We were all looking for our tribes. It was... And there's like a tribe for everybody in a lot of these super liberal spaces is the thing, because eventually, you know, nothing's off the table, which unfortunately in Oregon includes, you know, I don't know if you're allowed to say it on your channel, PDF files. I say the word all the time, but I don't want to mess up your algorithm. But
I think you can say it now. I think they've changed the algorithm a little bit. I think it just don't overdo it, and we'll see. That's my way. That's how I kind of go about it. But yeah, we know what you mean. We know what you're talking about.
Well, even that in itself, you know, think about that word that I just said, PDF files. You know, you talk about, because it's not just trauma, it's social media and how that's rewriting our brain. You know, the word PDF file and self-deletion, I hear in real life now all the time. You know, two things that we should really take seriously all over the planet. For, you know, the UK, the US, these are very serious issues that we need to discuss. But now they're taking away from us our ability to say these words, particularly with the younger generation. So a lot of what was happening in like these far left spaces, TikTok. You know, I never had a TikTok, but the things that I would see, it's just you put a bunch of parrots in a cage and they're all chirping at each other basically. So it's self-affirmation, especially after one thing I noticed, and I think this is part of the programming, everyone in my generation will say everything went downhill when Harambe died. There was a pattern of memes that started to happen month after month after month after the Harambe cycle. Every single time one of these new memes would come up, maybe like good guy Joe Biden or loss or any of these different things. Well, all of a sudden you're seeing how people are reacting to these types of memes. So some people will get a little more edgy with it. Some people would be this, some people would be that. But over time, as all these different meme cycles were going through, people were filtering out their families and their friends depending on how they posted these various different messages, to where by the time 2020 comes around, you have a full-on echo chamber.
Yeah. So it seems almost like the algorithm orchestrated this too in some way. And look, I'm not saying they were the only echo chamber that's been created since, especially social media, and it's mastered basically. I think they've mastered that method of control to create echo chambers for every faction of every belief system, no matter who you are. Even conspiracy theorists are probably in their own echo chamber thanks to an algorithm now. You know, if niche after niche, everyone kind of isolated away from each other, and that I can imagine was definitely compounded more with the COVID situation and the lockdowns and the rest of it. So what you're telling me basically is that people were looking for a family because they had abandoned their own through many various reasons, of some justified, some perhaps not so much, perhaps running from the law or running from a family that abused them. So I mean that some victims, some not victims, all sorts of people coming together under one idea of, well, we're outcasts, we don't have anywhere else to go, we don't have places, so we'll become a part of something where everybody seems cool, everyone's doing drugs, everyone's all having a good time, and they're all united in this banner of, oh, we hate fascists and we're the good guys. And it seems like a perfect storm for like self-delusional cult mentality when you start adding all these things together. But it sounds like a decentralized form of a cult. Like there's no leader. The idea is the leader. Like this unifying force behind it. And that's where I start to think this has got to be spiritual. Like if there is a leader, it's got to be Satan. Like that's all I'm thinking here right now, you know. And it's Satan is the one who's like, I'll accept you for who you are. You know, never mind that the God is the system in this analogy. And it sounds to me like these people have basically become Luciferian cultists without the religious language. That sounds to me like what's happened here. And
it's important too to say this part real quick too, because I don't see the comment section, but I feel like people are probably screaming at the top of their head. George Soros funded all of our DAs in Oregon. All the DAs that were letting Antifa off the hook for all of the worst crimes in history, money tied back directly to George Soros until I think the beginning of the Trump administration. That power was taken away. But yeah, like direct, it's kissing Luciferians at this point. They're touching tips. It's very that ingrained. It's bad. So I just want to throw that out.
It sounds about right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is exactly the type of thing you would want if you were trying to destabilize a Western nation, and with fundamental Christian basic values, you know, and tradition and laws. So you would want to create a group of people in there who basically want to burn it down. Like, of course you would. That's exactly how you would destabilize a nation. And again, these people, what do? You get victims. You abuse the abused. That's the easiest way to do that, and it sounds like this is what this actually is. I mean, you got out, you saw the light in a sense. You had a moment of clarity where you saw yourself in the mirror and said, "What the hell's going on here? Well, this doesn't seem right. How did I get this far?" I mean, it's a different time now, because Antifa was like big in like 2016, like you said, to that 2018 period, the clown world period. You know, everyone was social justice was a big thing in the throes of it was making its big move then, its big push. You know, it was the war was on, and I think they lost. I think they lost that war. I think the momentum very quickly. Well, I think the momentum of the public image left. The pendulum shifted to the other side. So this is what I'm trying to get to. It's kind of like, well, what happened to these people then who are now living in a world where the fascists have won? Because that's probably what they see, right? Is that right? Because right now you have Trump in power. You've got the right-wing Christian nationalist parties rising in the UK and Europe, and also that sentimentality in the US as well. You know, it's kind of, we've had enough. Call me racist, call me a bigot, call me a fascist. I don't care anymore. Your names mean nothing. Yes, get the immigrants out of my damn country. Though, like, no one cares anymore. It's kind of the smears aren't sticking like they used to. It's kind of like, no, I'm not a transphobe. I just don't believe men can be women and women can be men, and I don't care what you say. You know, everyone's kind of over it now. So what's Antifa doing? Are they spiraling? Are people waking up? Or are they doubling down? Like, what? Should we be prepared for some kind of weird new backlash? Like, what's happening? What's going on here?
So basically everything you were saying, about a month before Charlie Kirk was killed, I was echoing all that same sentiment. It seems like they're fading away. After Charlie Kirk, there's been a reactivation, particularly in the US with a lot of the ICE raids, because now it's not just various different Antifa members. It's now there's community support, and all these different groups are coming out to defend the immigrants and to stop ICE from what they're doing. So that's the part where suddenly it's bled out into the culture, so it becomes uncontainable. A lot of the devoted people who are really into the ideology, I knew this, I was saying this about a year ago that I was going to get to this point, is a lot of them are going to feel so pushed in that the fascistic system is actually overtaking them that they're going to turn into one of two things. They're going to go into cells, or they're going to become lone wolves. We had a cult group called the Z's Trans Terror Group that was going up and down the West Coast, I think even in New Mexico, slaughtering all sorts of people, all trans individuals. You know, we have all these trans shooters now with like different associations and ties to Antifa, Tyler Robinson. So now it's going to become more lone wolf terror attacks. So some of them are going to band together. Some of them are going to plot their own thing. Just today, there was a gunman that jumped the fence at Mar-a-Lago, and they shot him dead. He tried to raise their shotgun and shoot at security. They killed him. One thing that's going really unnoticed, too, is on top of the trans shooter phenomena, a lot of neo-Nazi shooters, like 09A type kids, are getting out there, and they're going to try to kill Donald Trump in the name of Satan. So it's getting very weird. But my worry with this is now you have a disenfranchised group of kids all over the United States, and some adults, now I see that as just another market. So if another group comes along and they say the right things, they offer the right amount of support, it would be bad. And I mean, I kind of feel like if China invaded tomorrow, which wouldn't happen, but if we got Red Dawn tomorrow, vast majority of the American youth would stand on the side of the oppressor and the enemy. They would stand with Russia. They would stand with maybe less Russia, but the allegiances are shaken. And I'm worried that there's going to be new groups that come along and they're going to take these kids in. And it's going to get very, very dangerous from there. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I mean, in the UK, a lot of these kids aren't even surviving because you have all these Islamists and they're coming in and they're pushing Antifa out. They're like, all right, thanks for welcoming us in. Now you got to go. And I think what's going to happen in the United States is a lot of them are going to start getting in bed with different gangs, organizations, probably particularly the Mexican gangs, given a lot of the ICE stuff going on now. And they're just going to keep tribe seeking and pushing themselves into further and further dangerous situations. And hopefully there's a bigger number of people that drop off than that. But it's going to get very muddy, I think.
So I suppose what we're saying here then is the hardcore ones who had died in the war, Antifa, who have nowhere else to go, are doubling down, going underground and finding ways to be more militarized than they were before. It's no longer just placards on the streets and chants. It's action, like physical action, violence. Violence is the only solution type of stuff and that's what you think we're going to see more of and are seeing more of? Is that basically where this is going?
I believe that this is an ongoing insurrection, and I think it's global. It's in the U.S. we'll call January 6th an insurrection, but then meanwhile, all these years of all these cities being burned down, all these people being killed, assassinated, this is a slow burning, long-term insurrection. And when the time comes, it's not just going to be Antifa, it's going to be all the friends they made along the way, which are not going to be the most savory of people, I don't think.
Tribe seeking was a good way of putting it. I like that phrase you used there. Like, these people are just seeking the next fight and the next tribe to join for a sense of identity. Is that what this comes down to? Who am I if I'm not the anti-fascist? Who am I if I'm not the guy who's in this gang or in this group? And obviously my answer would be, well, you're a child of God made in his image, and you could be a member of the body of Christ and be who you truly were supposed to be without identifying with something external from yourself. If you want, the offer's there. That's my solution. Because I think that at the end of these people are hurt people. And hurt people, unfortunately. And there's a fine line where it goes from being a victim to victimizer. It's that pipeline's a lot slippier than people realize. And at what point can we start saying you're not a victim anymore? You've gone too far, and you have these problems, So I'm very tentative here to put blame on the members of Antifa necessarily. I'm saying, yes, some of them are horrible and done horrible things, but no one's beyond redemption, of course. But it's kind of so I can see these, like I said, useful idiots, and they might not be in the technical sense idiots, but I'm saying in the what that means is you're doing the work of people who don't have your best interest at heart, and without realizing it, you are.
They're capitalist foot soldiers. They're foot soldiers for the agenda of rich men trying to monopolize on their destruction, and
exactly
realize it.
Exactly, like I said, and they're highly communist in nature, which is again anti-capitalist, and capitalism is not great. I'm not saying capitalism is wonderful. It's not. I think it's another problem as well, because they think in such black and white terms. They think, well, if you're anti-communist, then you must be pro-capitalist, therefore evil, and you must love capitalism. It's like, oh, no, I don't, actually. I'm struggling in the capitalist system like a lot of people. But go look at the evidence of communism throughout the 20th century, and you realize that's not where it is either. So it's kind of, look, we're doing the best we can with what we've got, and we're all struggling along here. And yes, we know, even the people on the right are aware that there are evil people in positions of power doing dodgy things to us. We're not, ignorant of this, so our common ground is actually a lot more than our differences when it comes to left and right. We are all oppressed, we are all under the thumb of a regime which wants to establish full dictatorial control over us. We agree with you. Have you heard of the New World Order? This is why I'm struggling to understand why the divide is so large, because realistically the people on the far right are conspiracy theorists, and the people on the far left are also conspiracy theorists. Like, that's what we are. We fundamentally distrust large organizational systems, and we think there's agendas at play against us. So I mean, you're out there trying to have these conversations with people. Do you think there's any hope to bridge this gap? Do you think maybe we need to focus on what we have in common rather than what's different in some way? Or does the right need to humanize themselves more, or show more examples so that they are actually people, not monsters, before people come out of this? Because division's the game here, isn't it, fundamentally? And it is so divided. And like I said, like something like, the right gets a martyr through Charlie Kirk, they're galvanized, and everyone's focusing on, the far right now feel like they've got some kind of like footing, but then no one ever talks about the far left being revived, like you just described. Like, they were quiet up until that point. Now suddenly they're back with force. We need to pay attention to that. I missed that point. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that gave them more fuel in a sense, and they've reignited themselves. And this can't be good. Like, this is, like I said, in Britain, I don't see them anywhere. I'm not gonna lie to you. They're not really a thing. Maybe they were in small numbers. We have something else going on now. Something completely different happening. Like I said, it involves Islam and the rest of it as well. And like I said, there's no anti-fascists at those protests anymore. They're not there anymore. You get right-wing protesters wanting their country back, and you get violence. Currently, you get random violent pockets of Muslims, but you don't get Antifa. I didn't see Antifa any of these things. They're not there. And that's interesting what you said, that they've kind of been kicked out, that they've served their role now. Step aside, but in America, you guys have guns. You guys have millions upon millions of people. You are so politically divided. You still kind of have a country left to defend. So there's something worth fighting for still. That feeling, there's something like, I don't know what you guys are going to do next. Like, I'm rambling here, but when I try and contemplate America's situation, it's mind-boggling just how complicated it's become, of a web of division and craziness, and violence. I'll give the ball back to you. You riff for a bit, and I'll just listen, because I'm sure you've got something to say about whatever I just said.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're completely right. It's mind-boggling even just to live here, just to see it all. But I think realistically, it's feeling like it's going to end in national divorce. It's one of the reasons I moved away from Oregon back to Texas. I was like, when those lines are drawn, I want to be back with my family. I don't want to be up here when the time comes for that. It's too divided. And I think what we all need to do right now is pay attention to what's being shown to the world right now. Like the Bible said, evil will be revealed. The last 2 weeks, we're all accepting that child cannibalism and ball worship and every conspiracy that I was ever raised with, that I believed, has just been completely confirmed. Your governments are trying to start World War III. Let's unleash the UFO files now, because people are going to freak out when they see us throwing our UFOs at each other over the skies, like we've been doing. Like, this is the book of Revelation. This is Pandora's box. Do we really want to keep bickering at each other, or can we maybe look at this little Epstein list and be like, your guys are on there and my guys are on there? Would you look at that? I agree. I feel like Trump has less to do with the Epstein files. I could be wrong. Maybe we should put him in front of a judge to determine if I'm wrong. Same with all these other different politicians that are involved. And, it's like the only reason they went after Prince Andrew was for releasing state secrets. No, this seems like the time where all sides, even the far left and the far right, should band together, make some sort of treaty, and say they're tied to all of this. Epstein was tied to the trans phenomena, to the UFO phenomena, to child trafficking, to cartels, to UFOs, to COVID. Everything we've been dealing with for the past 10 years all comes back to this freaking island and this guy and his interconnected web of literal Batman villains. Are we going to keep being so stupid that we're just going to scream at each other, keep trying to prove these points that are never going to stick? That's why I like talking to people on the far right. They can go off about the Jews all they want to me. I don't have to agree. I also don't have to emotionally react to it. I can sit back, take the information, absorb it for myself. You know, I talk to these people think I'm being pushed to the far right or I'm being manipulated, or that when I start to say something a little too liberal, I'm going back to my old ways and Trump derangement syndrome's coming in. It's just like, no, I'm just me. I'm here in the middle, trying to make friends, trying to inspire other people, try to make some crazy music videos, try to have some good conversations. The streets, there's nothing that the streets have to offer you. There's nothing that these protests can give you. There's nothing that these riots can give you, except digging your grave deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth it anymore. The villains have a name now. We have a literal list of villains. Let's focus on that. For the love of God, it could be the most unifying thing on planet Earth if we just let it be. But also don't let it drive you so crazy that you forget about your own local pedophiles. Maybe start worrying about them too, because that's a culture now. It's like, I think when it comes to the right and the left, the protection of children is common ground. Whenever they started putting gender queer and all these crazy LGBT books that should have had the authors thrown in prison because of the literal depictions of children in them, it was kind of wild to see all these like PTA meetings, and it was Muslims and super right-wing, white conservative dads making friends, coming together, being like, wait, you think that's messed up too? So do I. Let's not talk about Allah. Let's not talk about Jesus. Let's talk about this book that's poisoning our children's minds. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about. The rest of this is irrelevant. It's creating a false reality.
Well, at least on the religion is a different matter when it comes to differences. I think that's going to require something. I don't think you can unify religions because it can't all be right, unfortunately. And I think it's bigger than that, When it comes to like politics, it used to be civil. It used to be you have your views, I have mine, but we both still live in the same society and we both want what's best for it. We have common ground that we're both citizens under the law and under the system of our culture and where we belong. We belong within it, even with our opposing views, and I respect you as a member of the same civilization I'm a part of. There was that civility about the whole thing. And that seems to be what's been destroyed primarily here. It's kind of, no. If they don't believe in what you believe politically, they're a bad person and you shouldn't associate with them and you should, in fact, kill them to the extreme. It literally is that bad. It's kind of, you're good and they're evil. Don't you understand? They don't believe what you believe. They didn't vote for the same person you voted for. That means they want to vote for policies that want to make your life worse. They're your enemy. Don't you understand? But it didn't used to be like that. It's kind of politics. Politics has always been contentious. But at least in Britain, you can always just leave it at the door. You leave it in the ballot box. You don't bring it to the dinner table. You don't talk about it with the family, because it's not important and it's not a bigger picture problem. But now it seems to be the only issue. I remember watching some comedian. I can't remember his name now. I'm blanking it, but he's big on YouTube, and he was saying basically Donald Trump has destroyed the American family single-handedly just by existing. And he was saying, no matter where you go in America, whenever families get together, they can't help but talk about him. He always comes up no matter what. He's at every family dinner table. He's there, no matter, he's like a ghost that's haunting everyone at all times. And either people are scared.
Worshipped by the masses. And it's like, the people who hate him worship him the most.
Well, this is what I mean. Either you hate him and he is the devil incarnate, or he is a god. He is Jesus incarnate. It's one of the two, And you get these people who are just either as soon as his name comes up, it's over. The family's over. And families have been torn apart just by his very name. And look, I get how the right want to say, well, good. These people want to overreact and disown their families. That's the showing who they actually are. And then the other side's good. I don't want to be a part of a family of Nazis who want to and they have this crazy each side's right. There's no in the middle. But I mean, the tangible result is the family's destroyed. That's the reality of the situation, and they let politics do that. And it's kind of, you can't let politicians have that much power over your life. I'm sorry. If you have allowed that to happen one way or the other, you were in a cult somehow. And in fact, you mentioned at the start of this, MK Ultra. And yeah, this does sound like a mass traumatizing method. It does. Isolation is a part of the process, What do you think MK Ultra has to do with this? Could you just elaborate on that point a bit more? And I'll give it to you first.
it's kind of like you said, it's all a big giant pain ritual. And, I've been going really deep into satanic ritual abuse ever since what happened with my friend Larry happened. And, so on Epstein's board, there's two things that James O'Keefe showed. There was two phrases: mirror and face and dank brain. And I feel that all of us in Antifa, we were doing drugs, psychedelics to a large extent. A lot of us spent a lot of time in front of the mirror when we were on drugs, watching ourselves melt, fade away, turn to ash, dissolve, change features, morph into different beings. And when I say everybody, I just mean like the circle of friends that I had, we were really into this, right? I remember my friend had an 8-hour conversation with herself in the mirror at one point. She was so destroyed. And, my own experience dancing in front of the mirror, about to meet this entity. Think of the Joker movie, right? What happens as soon as he guns down the guys in the subway? He runs and he slams the bathroom door and he breaks out into a dance. When they were filming that scene wasn't scripted. They were literally just going to do a run past the alleyway. And then Joaquin Phoenix, however you say his name, went into the bathroom, slammed the door shut, told the director, come in here. And then he just started doing it like something came over him. And it's just, the same girl that talked to herself in her dreams, she would see the color purple in her dreams often associated by storm clouds. Whenever I stopped doing the psychedelics, I'd been going to this world before, but basically when I dream, I go to the Silent Hill type world. And this has probably been going on for close to 10 years. But it started happening heavier once I dropped the psychedelics and had this experience, which is a large reason I became fascinated with Vicky Joy Anderson, because as this was going on with Larry, these attacks were getting worse and worse and worse, to where I would dream things, the next day things would happen. It's like a world, and it's a mixture of all the different towns that I've ever lived in. And there's, particular orders of things. There's always a giant pond I'll walk around. Like when I was a child, there's always a coast. Sometimes when the coastline is receding, I can see buried cities like it's Tartaria or something. About the time I started talking to Vicky Joy Anderson, I began to be able to identify the beings. There's basically 6 beings at all times. There's a woman, gloves, large black hat, white dress, very reminiscent of Resident Evil 8, the giant woman in there. And there's always these helpers, and I'd have these dreams. I'd have dreams of like finding bodies and like seeing torture and all these horrible things. And, relatives being possessed, being raped by shapeshifters. Like it began to get very, very dark the more I tried to tell Larry's story. And the more that, because for a while I was like, he's a liar, he's crazy, because he threatened to shoot up the same police department that I protested for many years. All that's public. It scared the hell out of me, so I broke away, and I was just like, he's a liar, he's just attention seeking, he just wanted a story to tell. But I had to sit and think. I'm like, dude, he's been telling you these stories since before this podcast even existed. This isn't about making up some sort of fable. And then I started going into SRA, trying to understand that. Nathan Reynolds of Snatched from the Flames, understanding that story began to terrify me, because there's also a lot of stories that Larry told me off camera that I won't share with the world that are very similar to the horrible things that he would describe. But I might be getting off a little too track here, but it just seems like if you're a certain type of person and you've received a certain amount of trauma and you're willing to accept a certain thing, if you're looking for a higher sense of order, if you believe that you're being called to a spiritual awakening, there's something calling you. And it all just, if you follow the symbology, if you follow all this, it always just ties back to the Nephilim. But before I go into these dream states, now it doesn't happen. I had an exorcism with Vicky Joy Anderson, a series of deliverance prayers, where I actually saw this thing in physical form. But the dreams went away for a while, but I don't see the eye anymore. What would happen is I would go to bed and I close my eyes, and even like right now, all I see is like particles all the time. But when I close my eyes, it's like it's all black, and then all of a sudden there's like green, white, yellow, just little specks. But as I'm going to sleep, I could meditate and I could change the shapes, and it would become very psychedelic type imagery, but I would always be greeted with an eye. And it's almost like I could communicate with the eye in my mind. And there'd be nights where I would check on, hey, how you been? Haven't seen you for a while. Today kind of sucked. kind of like it's a little friend before I drifted off to sleep, and then focus on the eye, go into the dream world. Now I don't see the eye anymore, but when I'm going through the dream world, I can identify the beings in the background. When I got the exorcism, there was this kind of feeling, kind of like yoke being broken over my head, like there was a tingling sensation as they were going through this whole prayer. In my dreams, I've been experiencing a negative version of that for the last few weeks. It's like I catch the shadow person in the act. I see it doing something. I'm able to call it out. I can identify a glitch in the room. But 2 nights, for example, I'm in my brother's bedroom in our childhood home where I first started having a large series of hauntings. I open the closet door and I step in. That feeling of feeling elevated in those moments, like the presence of God's with you, it became an inverted version of that kind of like brought me to my knees, intense feeling of anxiety, pain, fear. At one point, there's a shadow in another dream that went to the ground, became like a crawling form, and it's like it sucked me into it. And then all of a sudden my vision's purple as it readjusts to its image, and then it takes me into a dark corridor. So it's like, I remember these dreams very, very vividly, but throughout the years, there's been apocalyptic visions of like, I'm caught out in the middle of fields while there's nuclear holocaust happening. I'm driving down the street and, before I even saw what a self-driving truck looked like, I saw it in my dream. And then a couple weeks later, I saw a picture online and I was like, dreamt about that. Kind of like near dystopian futures in an alternate written world. Kind of like I grew up with Majora's Mask, which is my favorite Zelda game, which is basically the whole theory is Link died from Ocarina of Time. So all the characters and all that look the exact same in this world because it's just an alternate version of him going through purgatory, dealing with death. It's kind of what these dreams feel like. Like it's people that I know, but they're not really quite those people. It's all just very surreal.
So do you think this has something to do with MK Ultra itself with you personally? Is that what you think this is all linked to, or?
I think that this is just on average now. I think this is becoming a common experience that's what your channel confirms to me. I'm seeing all of this and I'm just like, how can all this same crap be happening to all of us? How could this be happening to my friend Larry coming through, not even seemingly a jester entity? His was a lot different. There's just something from the other side that's just beckoning people and it's begging them to become a part of it. And one thing that I noticed after the whole deliverance prayer with Vicky is I kind of had an existential crisis. I was like, okay, it's been a rough couple weeks. I just want to watch some TV. Every single thing I would turn on Netflix, Hulu, Disney, all of the symbolism was just screaming in my face constantly. My husband put on a movie called what's it called? It starts with an M, I think. Maxine, I think it was the first movie in that series. And I watched it and I'd been watching Vicky Joy Anderson for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm just like listing out the ritual in my head. I'm like, she's taking the food. He's standing in the doorway. The 2 different houses represent 2 different worlds. And I'm irritating my husband because I'm like narrating what's about to happen as I'm watching a movie I've never seen before. And I'm like, it's all here. Star Wars here, Marvel here, DC here. Let me go turn on this. Is this a little lighter? Oh, no. And it's like I couldn't turn off just seeing the interlaced symbols everywhere. The purple, the diamonds, the clowns. And I was just like, this is everywhere. Everywhere you look, there is something having to do with this. And
I think in today's world, I think mass trauma rituals have kind of been put onto everybody through media. Especially those who perhaps religiously follow mainstream media, the movies that come out, the news cycle, and believe everything that comes from it, or maybe watch the soaps and the rest of it and are kind of obsessed or within the culture, the modern culture of the hot Netflix series or whatever it is, and everybody's talking about it. People who are locked into it, the system, this media system, I think they are being traumatized on a daily basis. I think they are being fed images of death and destruction and decay and misery and torture and pain and heartbreak, loneliness, despair, and the rest of it through the shows they watch, But then on the news, it's telling them that tomorrow is Armageddon. And it's always pushed forward a day by the end of the day, and it's like tomorrow's going to be the day. But it's also the case of we don't know what's going to happen next, and everything that has happened has already been memory holed and compressed into the mind bank of chaos. And it's kind of everybody is living in a time of uncertainty in their own bubble, which has been created by the mass trauma producing machine box in the corner of everyone's living room and in everybody's pockets. You know, the black screen, the scrying mirrors. So it seems like everybody is under trauma, and it's been inflicted through the media. And I think that is MK Ultra perfected. I think what they were doing in the 60s and the 70s has been mastered. They've admitted they were doing it to people, but we don't do it anymore. You know, we apologize, as Clinton said, you know, we're sorry that we did this, you know. But they didn't stop, they just evolved. They adapted. They applied what they learned on the people. And I think this is why yeah, exactly, through Hollywood as well, you know, and they used all the media that they had at their disposal to do this to people, to traumatize them. Because when people are traumatized, you can manipulate them very easily. You can make them disassociate, create alters, and you can create sleeper agents, and there might be many people, like I've said, people who are in like Antifa, for example. They may have listened to the hero's journey on repeat through all these media outlets over and over again to make themselves believe they are the hero in the world and they are the main character and the rest of it, you know. So this is why they naturally feel drawn to join these cults without any critical thinking, because they are running on trauma. Even if nothing actually has really happened to them in their own life, they believe something has happened, and they are traumatized, and they are suffering from PTSD because of the death by 1,000 cuts media trauma that's been put on them through the brainwashing, you know. So I think it's hardly surprising, like I said, you're meeting people having these same visions and these encounters with darkness, shall we say, from the other side, because when you're in a traumatic state, unfortunately, and this is a fact, and I've researched this for the book, trauma opens you up to the spirit dimension. It's like a rule, almost, and shamans know this. It's why some cultures go on vision quests and send you off into the wilderness with nothing but a knife, right? Because they want you to get traumatized, because it's going to make you wiser. You're going to see more of the spirit realm. You know, you'll come back with your familiar attached to you or something like this. You know, and you'll have this. And like in the Madangs of Korea will openly admit, oh, I have the sight because I witnessed my children get run over by a truck and watch the head explode in front of me or something. Something really visibly horrible happened to them, like that they can't get out of their head and they've gone insane. But now a demon comes to them that they can suddenly see because of that trauma, and it tells them all sorts of things. You're a spiritual guide now for the gods. You have this pantheon attached to you. Go and seek out this Madang who lives here, and they will teach you the way of harnessing your powers. You know, something like that happens to them. Suddenly an entity that they could not see prior is talking to them, and they can see it. So then they are now a shaman. That's their role in life. That's what they have to go and do and fulfill. But they're traumatized individuals who are being indoctrinated into some psycho drama Nephilim death cult, and they don't realize it. You know, they think they're a part of some grander spiritual movement or something. And I think that's exactly what's happening here with these people joining things like Antifa or any extreme group that gives them an identity outside of themselves, because they've disassociated from their own identity because it's wrapped up in this fear trauma situation. And I suppose in a way it's like a form of denial and a seeking of empowerment to join a movement that feels like it's giving that back to you in some way. But it's trauma cope. That's another way of describing it. And yeah, these people probably are demonized heavily. Like, it sounds like you've got your own demons still that you're dealing with it from all of this, you know, because I think we all do. I think we all we're going through it. Every last one of us who's been alive since the television was invented, it only got worse from there. It's only got more mastered and more perfected from there as a method used against us. And in many ways, I'm not surprised people are having these dreams, seeing the same things, having entities talk to them. I mean, you've seen the whole New Age movement, which again, many Antifa members may have dabbled in that kind of thing. They're talking to aliens or spirit guides or ancestor spirits or something, or the Palladians or the Arcturians or something. They're channeling the Galactic Federation or something like this.
I used to be really into that one in 2016. I used to be really into those little audio recordings where people type it up and it would just read it to you. Oh man,
but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Yeah, it was the same thing though. Suddenly people are, if there's any credence to it, then that's a traumatized individual who now has a demon talking to them, who's told them it's an alien from the Pleiades constellation. That's basically what, and it's like, it's just lie upon lie when the truth is so basic. What's really going on here? It's kind of like there's an army of parasites just on the other side of the veil waiting for you to perceive them so they can lie to you about what they are. And yeah, the phenomena is growing rapidly because everyone's traumatized. So everyone suddenly is a shaman now. And it's like unearned wisdom as well. Like they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what they're encountering, how to interpret any of it. Religion, or at least the Christian foundation, has been removed from most of Western civilization. And so people will believe anything. They don't know about the Nephilim. They don't know what demons are or where they come from. They don't know what their agenda is, and they don't have that context to explain or even know, for example, that they have authority over them either. Like they don't know any of that. So it's kind of like people are ripe for the picking for the demons from our perspective currently. And I'm hoping, like, I'm trying my best to make people to wake up and realize what's going on. And like I say, it sounds like Antifa is just another group of those people who are, because I think the demons do it two ways. Either they overtly reveal themselves or they subtly manipulate. And Antifa seems like an anti-religious, subtle manipulation type of deal going on here. Like the voices whispering in their ear, they probably believe to be their own righteous consciousness or something like this, telling them what the right thing to do is, you know. And like I said, it's like Lucifer. It's a religion without the religious language. That's what this cult seems to be. Anyway, I ranted there. I'll give it back to you. Sorry, I went off on one.
No, I enjoyed it. Everything you're saying is completely right. It really what it boils down to at the end of the day is the blind leading the blind. It's everybody listening to these entities, to their own practices. It's just, you know, like if you were to go like halfway through my channel and go back down to my first talks with Larry, like I said, I wasn't a Christian. I was an omniist. A lot of the direction I was getting from him, you know, saying this with love to Larry, I think it was bad advice, you know, to lean in, how to seek out this entity in my dreams, how to ask questions, how when you go to the other side, how to come back with information. This is your guide. This is your spirit. This is your this. And he was trying to get me to lean in. Simultaneously, he's dealing with demonic attacks and possession and seeing all these entities, and he's in the state of chaos. And it's kind of like, yeah, in hindsight, you know, we did a banishing ritual. This is the first time we thought we were getting rid of it. Me and my friend, we took direction from Larry, and we said a certain like prayer and a certain set of words, you know, smudged the room with the sage. And I had an old sigil that I had my blood on, and I took it and I burnt it in a cup. And there was a whole process leading up to this, but I threw the paper into this cup that had a candle in it that had fallen over and was burning. And it was like a little mini fire tornado came up, and it was like, my friend's just like, what the heck was that? You know, just kind of like, and I'm just sitting here like, I guess we got rid of it. I mean, that was quite a spectacle. I've never seen a fire tornado like that, much less in my house. I thought it was going to touch my ceiling. But now then things just got worse. Like a week later, things just got worse and worse and worse. And I was like, crap. Because one thing I forgot to mention too, when I was having this psychedelic experience and I saw this, I was in this jar with these frogs. 3 weeks later, I went to go help my friend move into an apartment. And she had moved in, and she got the apartment from a friend of hers that had to go to a mental home in Portland because she had completely snapped, drugs, all this stuff, trauma. And I go to help her move into this apartment, and there's like a altar, pentagrams, candles, crystals, and there's 2 jarred items there. There's a jarred preserved rabbit and a preserved frog. And I took those with me. Part of Larry's banishing ritual, he's like, you need to take this out into the woods, bury them as deep as possible. The drawings that I showed you, those got buried as well. And then we came home and did the ritual. I just came back infinitely worse. And different things in the music videos, because I was trying to use the music videos to channel certain effects. In the music video I sent you, Give My People Back, you know, there's a scene in there and it has these ladies in there in jail and they're marching in chains. A couple weeks later, if I'm remembering my timeline correctly, his girlfriend Jennifer was arrested and sent to jail. She had sold some drugs to a young man that overdosed and died. This broke Larry immensely the fact that she was being abused in jail. She was doing video chat. She'd be bruised, bloodied, all of this. She had MRSA that was going unchecked. They weren't giving her proper medical care. Even before I met her, I saw her in the hospital a couple weeks before her arrest, and she was being mistreated. Doesn't excuse what she did. It's obviously terrible, but this instance broke him. And I could just go back to these older music videos where I was trying to channel this kind of energy to kind of put a little bit of Shamrock into practice. And I kind of look back and I'm like, a lot of these things happened. You know, I did Go Tell Aunt Rhody, and it's about MK Ultra and Larry coming in, and here's the aliens, and here's the schools being shot up, and here's a shadow figure doing it, and just all this symbolism, and the clowns and the owls of the Freemasons. And a couple months down the line, he's threatening to pick up a gun and do something that I fear the most. About the same time that he's saying there's voices in my head, there's shadows in my home, texting me, I am Legion early in the morning. I'm just like, oh my God. And it's just like, there's been a lot of people I talk to. It's like, if people are meant to be on my journey, it's almost like they start experiencing something. There's been people I've talked to on the channel who are like, yeah, no, I don't really have any dreams. And then about a week or two after knowing me, they're like, so I had this weird dream. And you talk a lot about this, and I've never experienced this. I saw this symbol, or I went to this room. And it's almost like, I feel like with this whole process, as people are interacting with each other, it's almost like we're sharing this energy with each other.
I just want to make this clear to the audience, by the way. This was years ago you did all this stuff. You're not doing these rituals now or burying jars in woods. No. I think people are a bit confused. I think they think like you're telling me something you did last week with Larry. This was a year ago.
This was a year ago, but I had my little deliverance prayer session with Vicky Joy Anderson and her friend 5-ish months ago, I think it was. And part of that prayer was to renounce the occult. And I definitely don't do stuff like that anymore. But I've had
the We Are Legion message. I think the We Are Legion message was a huge hint at who was at play here, because that is a legion of demons. That literally what it is. The Bible has dealt with this. It's literally a very old story. Like, this is what they refer to themselves as, because they are bodiless. I think they do have some kind of weird hive mind thing going on in the spirit realm, which is why when one demon possesses you, it's actually not one. It's a lot of things all at once, you know. And yeah, it sounds like Larry was fully demoned up, and it sounds like the tactic they use is they create through a many series of weird synchronistic events. It's a good way to describe it. Synchronicity is like a big thing. It's like, oh, you know, we're predicting the future here. We have these powers. We have these abilities. I make this thing and then it happens not long afterwards. Something spiritual is going on. Something bigger than us is happening. And you get swept up in that kind of thing to the point where you get justified in like what Larry was thinking of doing. You know what I mean? It becomes this a weird vibrational back and forth, getting more intense as it goes situation where it's something violent.
You that you're literally God. That's what it does.
Yeah, exactly.
That you are God.
Yeah, and then eventually, you know, because it's like, oh well, all the numbers and symbols and signs are all aligning that I have to go and pick up the gun and do this thing, you know, and that's how violence ends up happening. And it was just demons all along, you know, playing people off of each other and creating a godhead like delusion, making them think they have powers when really it's just the demons doing these things, you know. It's more like for example, Larry's girlfriend. I'm just going to theorize here, but you had this vision of her in chains and was put into a music video, this woman in chains, and then the demon probably said, okay, well, I'll use that and I'll go and make her sell drugs to this guy and I'll kill them and then she'll go to prison and they'll in your mind, you know, make him think that he has this ability to predict the future. You know, but it's just a very, when you realize how simple it actually is, it's only from our perspective does it look like magic. Do you get what I mean? But really, that's how magic really works. It's just the stuff going on that you don't see behind the scenes that makes that illusion appear as though it's something else. And I've seen this a lot. I mean, we've been going for an hour and a half, and I do want to kind of get more into this now, because like I said, you are on your journey to finding Christ here. I think you're still in your early days. Like I said, you're getting deliverance, you're talking to people, you're trying to get to grips with spiritual warfare. So you're not like you're going through it from the sounds of it. We all are. We all are, don't get me wrong, we're all still even those Christians who say they're fully delivered and saved are probably still going through it, and being demonized and attacked in many ways. So this isn't me like saying like, oh, I've got it all figured out, because I don't. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're going down the right path at least. I would encourage you really to pray and fast. Those are the two things which I think will help massively. Obviously avoid drugs, avoid alcohol, avoid anything like putting substance into your body. Stay as sober as possible, but I would also fast and go long periods without eating as well, and then maybe include a water fast once you're confident as well, because there's a parasitical issue as well which does need to get dealt with, which I think does help demons. It amplifies their ability to mess with us. I think that's the issue with parasites. So I would recommend that as just an early stage. Do a parasite cleanse and do some fasting for a while, and a lot of prayer. And I think that might do some wonders, at least helping you gain that spiritual connection, that feeling of spirit. Because when you fast for long enough, it's kind of like doing psychedelics, not visually, but spiritually. You feel this mastery over self and body in a sense where you can actually feel the spiritual power and obviously focus on Christ and the Holy Spirit and the rest of it. And I feel like that really does helps in a big way. It helps to also just give that confidence in your faith that you're going down the right path. And I don't know what you think or how you perceive things like the church and Christ and Catholicism. I would say don't dwell too much in ritual or the systems of man that have been created in Christ's name. Just focus on reading the words of Christ and getting sober. That's all you need to really do right now. That's my advice from where you're at. Because, look, it's a long, painful process to get rid of the old man and to be born again into the new creation. You might be born again in the spirit, but the flesh is still the flesh and it's still corrupt. And that takes a lot of work to kind of overcome and repent and abstain and resist the urges. We're all still going through that temptation every single day. It's an up, and once you become a Christian, yeah, it gets worse. Like the temptation's worse, okay? Because you also have this conviction of the Holy Spirit on your heart which you didn't have prior, which makes the guilt worse when you do mess up. So it's horrible, and then you got Satan laughing at you, saying, "Haha, you're not worthy. Look at you, messed up. You're pathetic. Like you think God loves you, and you have all this stuff going on, So but ignore all that. This is why the prayer and fasting thing helps. And that's kind of my early advice for you, but maybe you should just explain even to the audience, where are you at? How are you finding it? What have you been what's the process of finding Jesus been like? Because it's you've come from a different world. That's all I can say. So go, I'll give it to you.
Absolutely. I think trying to make friends with more Christians, like intentionally make more friends with Christians. I had a job I lost not too long ago, but one of the ladies I loved working there with, she was a woman from Nigeria, and she came to the United States because, clearly Christians aren't doing too good over there. And, trying to get her perspective on things, trying to stay away from people that I know are bad for me. I couldn't get Sundays off for the longest time, so that's kind of why I haven't gone back to church. But my mom goes to church. I like to go with her sometimes, but it's podcast church. The preacher isn't even there. You're watching it on a TV, so there's a bit of disconnect there. It's nice, but personally, I like to listen to Bishop Mari. He's my favorite. I'll listen to him on YouTube, and just always, I just keep trying to question myself, test if certain things are of God. Yeah, still learning, trying to read the Bible more, but I'm still trying to discern what's good for me and what's bad, because I'm obsessed with like Hollywood, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, and I still have a love for these things, but I kind of look around and I'm just like, I have to gauge my levels of attention, because after a certain point it's kind of like I'm worshiping something else, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to monitor that.
There's a fine line between idol worship and just liking something. I mean, it depends how much of that would you allow to have control over your own life. How much time do you invest in thinking about those things as opposed to God and Jesus and living in the truth and the reality around you, And it's not like I said, I feel like it's not like continuously thinking about Jesus is what I'm saying here, but it's more like living a life that God wanted you to live? Are you doing that, or are you wasting your time in fiction? You know what I mean? I think that's more what you need to kind of realize. And there's nothing wrong, I don't think, inherently with having moments of relaxation and enjoying a good story. I don't think there's anything wrong with that inherently. But then you get these people who do kind of like idolize the story and make an identity out of it. And that's when you've gone into idol worship, you know. And I would say, you know, things like conventions like Comic-Con are a good example of this. You know, where people have gone over to the point where they are dressing like their idols. And it sounds silly, doesn't it? But that is idol work. That is what it is. That's basically the thing. You've put that in place of God, and you are pretending to be in the image of something that isn't what God created you to be. And it's kind of, I know people want to say, well, I'm just having some fun. Can I not just have fun? And it's kind of, yeah, you can have fun, but when you actually look at yourself in the mirror, do you really think this is the type of fun? Do you think there's other ways you could be having fun that may be more productive as well? It's kind of, sometimes it just crosses a line at some point, and you can see where they've gone. You know when someone's gone too far. And so just be wary of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying a good story, though. I mean, I read books. I've read many stories over the time. I've learned a lot from fictional stories, you know, and morality that is true can be in good stories. So it's not like there's an issue there, but just try not to let it cross that line where it's suddenly now my identity is this thing, you know, like, and I'm obsessed with this thing, and it's all I want to talk about and think about, and I'm the guy who. That's where you get that issue, I would say. So don't worry, don't beat yourself up about that kind of thing. I mean, you're already like. You just started. You're trying to figure it out, and they said just draw closer to Jesus, read his words, read what he said. You know, like get the red letter Bible where the words of Jesus are in red, and read those. You know, get to grips with it. Take your time and go out and listen to the other preachers out there and their own perspectives. You know, listen to the Catholic preachers, listen to the Pentecostals and the whatever. Just pick a group. You know, let's get it all and get them to share how they would tell the gospel. I mean, Derek Prince was a huge influence for me. I don't know if you've heard of Derek Prince.
Yeah, I actually started listening more recently.
Yeah, he's wonderful, honestly, and you know, he's with Jesus now. But when he was around, you know, he was a powerful man of God, and he cared about spiritual warfare and letting people understand. He didn't understand what demons were or the history of the Nephilim necessarily. I don't think he really dwelt on their origin, but he did understand how to get rid of them. He understood how they operate and what power and the authority he had. So I would listen to a lot of what he has to say, especially if you're going through your own demon issue, because he also just, you can tell his passion for God is there. It's inspiring. It's really inspiring, you know. So I'd recommend him. He's a Pentecostal, so he's very much a charismatic. He's very much a speaking in tongues type of Christian. Say what you want about all that kind of stuff, but I don't deny for a fact that he was a brother in Christ and he loved God, you know. So whatever, you know. But I'd recommend him just as somebody who helped me a lot in my early days. But no, don't discount anything. Don't discount church outright either. I know I talk a lot on here, like, you know, you don't need a building to have a relationship with Jesus, but community is a good thing. It's a good thing, and the body of Christ coming together physically, it's a good thing. I do not at all say you shouldn't be doing that, but you don't need it, because it's just where two or more there in Jesus' name. You've got an ecclesia, you've got church, it's happening, you know. But there is something to be said for having a physical support network if you need that. And it's what works for some doesn't work for others. Try it. Go to a few churches. Just give it a go. Sit there in the back. Have a listen. See which one fits, if any. I tried. None of them really fit me, unfortunately, because I'm just too far gone into the conspiracy stuff, I think. And that's all it is. I think that's just my own problem, you know. But luckily, I get my fellowship having these conversations with people or talking on my own Telegram group or my own live shows. And I have a community online of people I communicate with regularly who are all Christians, you know, and we help each other and we support each other and we're there for each other and we pray for each other, and that is definitely a good thing. Don't discount it outright. I think the issue is don't put too much stock into the hierarchy of church systems. Like the leader of the church is my leader, that type of thing. That's where you get problems immediately. So just don't let that blur you, and don't like blame the corruption of like Catholic priests raping little boys, for example, as Jesus. It's not the same thing, you know. These are the corrupted men doing what corrupt men do when they get power. And that's the problem with institutional hierarchy and religious systems, which is why I think Christ said this temple, not one stone will be left on top of the other when he made that prophecy, because you don't need the temple. You are the temple of God. Your body is the temple. The kingdom of God is within and all the rest of it for that reason. But you can still have church. You can still have meetings. And so just don't get too lost into it. Don't get lost into another cult. That's my other advice for you, because there's a lot of Jesus cults out there, or mega churches, prosperity gospel stuff, or Jehovah's Witnesses, or Mormonism, or something which usually leads you towards some other man's preaching or writing or something like this. But then there's also a lot of churches out there who want to tell you we are the one true church with the correct apostolic succession going all the way back to Peter or something like that. You get the Ortho Bros and the Orthodox style and the Catholics and everything. They are so borderline into cult territory. It's hard to, it's just leave it. I leave it, it's kind of, that's why I'm a non-denominational. This is how I do it and why I do it this way, because they can't all be right. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, they can't all be right, but will all tell you 100% we are the only way. And I think whenever there's somebody trying to tell you, you want a relationship with Jesus, you have to go through us, that's when you've got a problem immediately. So don't let that cloud your journey in any way, or don't get roped into it just because you're seeking a community or all this type of thing. I would recommend you remain in your isolation period for maybe another 3 to 4 years, just fasting, praying, reading the word, getting to grips with it, fighting those demons, casting them out, remembering your own authority that's been given to you, and learning what your authority is. I'm not going to lie, the demons might try and kill you in this time. I'm not going to lie to you. It happened to me. Okay, I think once demons who are used to you start losing you, they would rather you be dead.
Here's a fun story real quick. When I had that little exorcism with Vicky Joy Anderson, I didn't learn this till the next day. I think we did it sometime in the afternoon, but there was a flooding in North Texas at the time. There was a story that made national news about how these little girls got floated away in a river, and they found the bodies later on, I think. But my sister was going to summer camp, and her and I guess my parents were underneath. It's kind of like there was a house on stilts, so there was like wood in front of it. And I guess a car had flown off the hill, gone straight down, and it almost fucking killed my little sister. Except there's a little boulder right there that stopped the fucking car. And then my parents told me that the next day, and I was just like, what the it kind of hit heavy. I was just like, I think that was the right choice.
Yeah, well, spiritual warfare is hardcore when it gets going. Okay, like if they can't get to you, they'll get people around you. It's about making you suffer, and if they can't get to you directly, they'll make you suffer through other people. And if that's not making other people attack you, it's by attacking the people you love. Okay, that's how this works. Okay, it's horrible. These things are sordid, depraved, heinous beings who hate you and everything about you, who want to be you because they don't have a body, and because you've kicked them out, they hold a bit of a grudge, okay, and they want revenge, and it's kind of like, well, if we can't have you, nobody can, and they will try and kill you and destroy you, or destroy your faith to let them back in at least as well. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a battle. You just have to remember, like, you have no authority in the name of Jesus Christ. You leave. It's that simple. You're not welcome here. You have no authority here. It's over. It's done. You're gone. So back to the dry place. Just don't give them access back. You got to close the doors. Okay. You can't serve two masters. I'm sorry. Like you're going to have to deal with whatever sin is in your life, and you're going to have to stop. And that's not the thing that's saving you, but it'll certainly keep the demons at bay if you're serious about it. Okay. Jesus has done the work. You're covered. You're saved. But while you're here on earth, would you like to have an easier life with less demons? Then there's things you've got to do. There's things you've got to do. Okay, and you've got to not give them that permission. That you have authority over them. Don't give them the rights or the authority to get into you. And this is, it's contract stuff. It's soul contract stuff. You know what I mean? It's spiritual warfare. It's legal in nature. You can't give them that permission. Consent is important, and it's kind of, if you go back to doing drugs again, you're just... You know what I mean? I'm not saying you've lost your salvation, but you're playing with fire. It's that kind of thing. So just remember that, you know. But I'm not going to tell you the next 4 years are going to be easy. Next 5 years, the rest of your life, it's probably not. But that's war. The real war. You know, the real war, the only war worth fighting, I would say. But the problem is, you know, like a lot of people who, like, who are in Antifa, let's say, like we're talking about today, they're fighting the wrong enemy. Because they're fighting men and women and people, not realizing that, you know, it's Ephesians 6:12. We don't wrestle with flesh and blood. Our real battle is not carnal in nature. It's not against evil people, and it's against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that starts here with me and you. And it's a personal war. If everyone fought that war and won and reclaimed their authority, the world would get better very quickly. Who knows? Even heaven may manifest on earth, eh? As in heaven, so on earth as it is in heaven, may actually become a real thing. But that's, who am I to say that? That's just me theorizing now.
It's worth a shot.
It's worth a shot. Yeah, it's worth a shot. Yeah. So that's my advice for what it's worth. I think maybe that's what Vicky wanted me to say to you, or when she recommended I talk to you, because she very much wasn't much of a, this person's young, he's just started his journey, young in Christ, not young, you're about the same age as me, aren't you? It's like, you know, he's just started his journey and maybe you could benefit from a talk. I'm guessing that's what she wanted me to say, for what it's worth, you know. Yeah, so that's all that's what I have to offer you in terms of advice. Just don't let anybody, don't follow a leader and don't join another cult. It's too easy in Christianity. It's too easy. In a sense, Christ is our cult leader. If you want to go that way, Christians are in a cult, and it's Jesus. He's the one we keep our eye on. But there's too many cults within Christianity where it's like another man gets in the way, or another institution gets in the way. Just avoid that, and you can't go wrong. That's kind of nothing wrong with being together with brothers and sisters, but don't give the institution the authority. You have the authority. Christ gave it to you freely. Don't let somebody steal it from you and sell it back to you. You know what I mean? Because it's yours, rightfully so. That's kind of what I'm trying to say there. Yeah, I'll give it back to you anyway, because obviously we have 10 minutes left. So I'll give closing thoughts to you, and if you want to help people find where they can find your stuff as well. So go ahead, Tyler. I'll let you finish off.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and thank you for all that advice, because I think I really did need to hear it. And yeah, I'm going to work on strengthening my relationship with Christ. And I've just seen so much darkness. I know I'm going to see darkness continually throughout my life, but the way I've been living, I could sure lessen the load a little bit, the right amount of effort. And yeah, and community is really important too. I feel like I've gotten that with my channel and the different people I've gotten to speak with. Like now I'm friends with a white separatist and a guy who used to be in the KKK and the Aryans Nations. And I used to be super, super liberal 5 years ago. Like, that in itself, to me, that's magical. That's what I want to see more in the world, is just more world mixing, more people coming together, more people recognizing their demons, which I think your show is, again, very, 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 very perfect for. And that more people need to understand that there isn't resurgence of the Nephilim. You know, there is a reality to this UAP phenomena, these interdimensional extraterrestrial beings. And a lot of the conspiracies that we thought, or a lot of people thought were bunk my entire life, it's coming true. So if all of the Satanism and the cannibalism and the giants and all that are coming true, then that means God's real too. Mm-hmm. You know, there can be no taking it away from me. I believe in God because I've seen the devil. I think it's the best way to put that. And I'm just very grateful that people like you are out there doing the work and just really helping people like me out, because it's freaky, dude. The things that I've seen are just, it's freaky. And yeah. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm tired of living like I'm in an apocalypse. I feel like a lot of these people, the way I say it, it's like we're all going through hell on earth. But when you pile on the drugs and the occult and all these different things on top of it, you know, hell on earth looks very, very different to a lot of people out there. And I just want people to realize that, you know, if you're walking down the street and you see a fentanyl addict bent over, or somebody talking in tongues to a brick wall outside of your Walmart or whatever, when you see the crazy people, try to give them grace, because there's something going on through their eyes that you can't possibly imagine. And a little bit of love goes a long way for these people, I think. like a long, long way.
It went a long way for you. You saw people praying for you, and you thought they were your enemy. Like, love can change the world. It really can. Like, it's a very powerful thing that is underused and underrated in this world. Being nice to somebody can change their life because it's rare. That's kind of what the whole point of this is. It's kind of, look, there's a time and a place for righteous anger. There is, you know. But really, what people need is somebody to hear them and to be kind to them. And you'll be surprised at how drastic of a radical move that is in today's world. And it changes lives. So, you know, you're a walking example again. Best of luck to you. Honestly, if you need anything, you know where to find me. You've got my email. You can contact me. You can add me on Instagram and talk on there more direct, or join the Telegram as well, where we can all support you and do what we can. And look, don't let anybody tell you how your walk with Christ is going, or where you should be, or anything. This is up to you now. It's you and him. Okay, so I'll leave it there for myself. All right, but yeah, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I forgot to mention Triple B Collective for anybody out there interested. It's in my name here. But
the Triple B Collective. I've tagged it down below in the description. You are also tagged in the title of this video, so they can just click that if you're listening, and it'll take you straight to your channel. Or just type in the Triple B Collective and you'll see it. And like I said, I explained at the start, your videos are a bit of everything. Music videos, conversations, Antifa therapy sessions, interviews with people of varying beliefs, ex-Antifa members, or even the opposite of the end of the spectrum as well. Like you said, you're trying to bridge that gap, which I commend you for. And obviously just working out your journey along the way. And if anyone's interested, I recommend going and checking out your work too. So yeah, there we go. We'll leave it there. Thanks again, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Heck yeah. Peace and love you guys. Thank you.
God bless.
Take it.
There we go. All right. So there's these drawings up on the screen. I'll switch that to the webcam. Yeah, guys. So that was a good conversation. I enjoyed that. That was something different. Like I said, he reached out to me a while ago, 2 years ago, perhaps when he was just coming out of his Antifa phase, I think, probably. But he clearly had a year or two to kind of figure it out, go through the process. It was like he talked to Vicky, probably trying to get some understanding of his own Christian worldview or what Christianity means, and she obviously went through a deliverance process with him, which was great. So this is somebody who's had psychedelic experiences, so he's certainly no stranger to the concept of spirituality or entities, or that there is a spiritual dimension. And you can say what you want about the New Age to Christ pipeline, but it does exist. And I'm not saying you need the New Age to get to Christ, but God will meet people where they are. And some people, especially those who have gone through the New Age stuff, they are ripe to get over to Christianity because they already know there's a spiritual world. Now you just have to explain to them how it actually works, and they'll very quickly realize that Jesus Christ is the only way, the truth, and the light. So it seems like he's very much going through that similar pipeline, which many people of my generation, the millennials and Gen Z, are going through. And that's just how God's working in today's world, I think, to get them to Christ, though that's not what saves them. It's not going through the New Age that saves them. Obviously, it's the truth and accepting Jesus Christ that saves them. But I feel like that seems to be how it's going today. That's the common story I'm hearing. And Tyler's clearly on his journey going through that. And if anyone else listening today has been affected by the things we're talking about, or perhaps wants to reach out and have a conversation about how they're going through their own journey, that's what this Truth or Therapy session really is for. It's for you to have a chance to come on and maybe talk, just have a talk and voice your concerns, voice the things that are holding you back, talk about the struggles you're having along the way, or maybe struggling to accept certain realities or truths in the conspiracy world, but also struggling on your journey to accepting Christ into your life. I understand you may have reasonable doubts in your own mind as to why you should accept Christ. And I will try my best to give you why I believe you should, or answers you may not be able to contextualize. I'll try my best to give those answers. Look, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I have all the answers. But I want to help. I'll try. So please reach out if you want to talk on another episode in the future of the Truth or Therapy sessions. That's what this is for. And let me know if in the comments if anything that was mentioned here does in some way help you or has impacted you in some way, because I think it's healthy for other people to see who's out there in the world and where they are. Because look, I'm in the conspiracy world. I'm also in the Christian conspiracy world. And I'm not going to lie to my people listening. You're in your own echo chamber. You are. Okay. And it's easy to forget just where people are in the world and just how far gone some people are and just what people are doing and the beliefs they're having, because you are only talking to other Christians who have your belief. And that is, well, limiting, first of all, because you don't know what you're up against and you don't know what people are thinking and believing. And you don't know just how to help. You can't really help people if you don't understand them or where they're coming from or what they're going through. So I think it's good to hear these stories and to have these conversations. And you shouldn't be limiting yourself to not having these conversations with people. I'm not saying you have to agree with people all the time or believe everything they believe. Certainly not. I'm not saying that. But you can listen to them and be kind to them and show them the love and patience that God wants us to show them. Through example, as ambassadors for Christ, that we are not here to condemn them or accuse them. We're here to show them the way and offer them the truth that they have been forgiven. That's all we can do, right? And that's good news. I think people need more good news in this world today, don't they? So we'll leave that there. Thanks for listening. I'm coming on to 2-hour mark now. If you want to help me in any way or you like what I do, you can support me. You can buy a book, The Nephilim Like Clowns, at Amazon. You can email me at understandingconspiracy@gmail.com, and you can purchase through PayPal a signed copy of my book. I'll mail that to you personally. Or you can join Patreon. Actually, I put a lot of time into this over the past month. There's a lot of extra content on there. There's a series that's only on Patreon for nobody else but patrons. So go and join if you want to see that weekly show, The Things You're Not Allowed to Say, where I get a little bit more open and dark about the things and topics that you will not hear me talk about on YouTube because you simply can't. So that is on Patreon, something for my patrons who do choose to support me financially. I want to give you more. That's just for you as a thank you. And there's snippets of the book in progress on there as well, chapters posted on there, behind the scenes stuff, early announcements, early access to podcast visits before they become public are on there as well, and exclusive content. So please consider becoming a patron. Links down below. It is the best way to support me because they take the least amount of money of whatever you donate. Other companies take quite large chunks of whatever you choose to offer. Patreon only take 5% for me. So please, if you do want to support me in any way, that would be ideal, and you will get something back in return. So there you go. That's me shilling for myself at the end as usual. But thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for listening. And please don't hesitate to email me at understandingconspiracy@gmail.com if you would also like to share your journey or have any questions as well. I am here. And also the Telegram group is an excellent resource to get that fellowship if you're looking for a community. Links down below to the Understanding Conspiracy Telegram. So there you go, guys. I'll leave that there. Thanks for listening. And as always, God bless.
Take my hands, pen me out some words that will make them understand what hell's like. Devil, use my voice, try and explain to them that I didn't have a choice. It was my life or it's their life, cause they have never had a knife in their skin, or a bullet hit them, or a friend die in the pen. And they have never slept outside in the cold, lied, cheated and stole, and begged for it to end. When the wind blows, it hurts, and when they touch me, it's worse. Tell me what's this all worth? Cause hell is hot, and I'm not fit for life on earth. Go to hell, and I tell them, give my people back. Devil man, this I ask you, give my people back. All I've done wasn't fun, I think you owe me that. March to hell, and I came to take my people back. Give them back now. Woman, take your hands, press them both together. together and pray to the man. Pray for his forgiveness. You can't help who you love. Ask that when you go that he lets you up above, so he don't punish both of us. Cause you have never put a gun on a man. Squeeze as many times as you can till it locks up and jams. And you have never went to hell and made a deal, seen that he was real and been a part of his plan. When the wind blows, it hurts, and when they touch me, it's worse. Tell me, what's this all worth? Cause hell is hard and I'm not fit for life on earth. Go to hell and I tell him, give my people back. Devil man, this I ask you, give my people back. All I've done wasn't fun, I think you owe me that. March to hell and I came to take my people back. Go to hell and I tell him, give my people back. Devil man, this I ask you, give my people back. All I've done wasn't fun, I think you owe me that. March to hell and I came to take my people back. Give them back now. Give them back now. All my brothers doing years off in prison are those who spend their life in the system. Those wishing they had a life worth living, or those who are enslaved by religion. All the children who were born without a chance, I'm one of you for everything it's worth. Who sit in silence cause the faintest sound hurts. Hell is hot and I'm not fit for life on earth. Go to hell and I tell them, give my people back. Devil man, this I ask you, give my people back. All I've done wasn't fun,